Assalamu alaikum. Are we on? All right, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our home, our kitchen. Inshallah, you guys have been doing well. We are,
Wait,
I'm sorry?
I don't know if it's not live on YouTube yet, so.
Okay. Okay. So we are getting ready to prepare some of our traditional Afghan dishes, but maybe we'll wait a little bit and see if we have people joining on. Is Sheikh Jamal on the Zoom or not?
He's on the Zoom, yeah, so
Okay.
maybe he can pop in and say a few words. There you go.
So last time we gathered and I made one of our basic Afghan dishes, which was white rice with lawan, which was a specific kind of chicken with a Lebanese yogurt sauce. We had a lot of wonderful feedback from the community, maybe even up to like a week after. Sisters were texting me pictures of their meals and how they've been preparing them continuously throughout the month of Ramadan. The whole idea of this program that the Majlis has sponsored and put on and organized was that this Ramadan, unfortunately, we haven't been able to socialize and get together. And I know that it's a huge part of our tradition to feed one another and invite one another, whether it's at the masjid, at the Majlis, in our homes. So we thought of a creative way where we can cook and kind of have a lesson for you guys to be able to make a meal that's enough for two families, and then keep a portion of it for yourselves and share half of it with a family of your choosing. Tonight we are going to be making Qabili Palau, which is a famous, it's one of the most famous Afghan dishes. A lot of you guys are familiar with it. You've eaten it at your friends' homes, Afghan families. It is basically a rice that is made in meat broth. Typically, I make it out of lamb, but due to our time restriction of this program, I have selected chicken, which it comes out really good with chicken, and I thought chicken was easier to handle for everyone and accessible. So today's dish is going to be made with chicken. It is a tedious process, this making of the rice, so inshallah you guys can keep up with me. I did receive a lot of feedback, and I'm going to try to slow down a little bit and explain and measure so that you guys can follow it accurately. I also printed the recipe. I hope that if you guys go on the Facebook Majlis page or the Instagram Majlis page or my personal pages, you guys will have a list of the ingredients in front of you. We don't have it on the screen for you guys, but if we can all follow that. So before I start, we'll go through the ingredients so that we can all be prepared, and then I'll go ahead and start the actual cooking process. So if you guys could pull out, the first dish is the Qabili Palau. And I have here, let me move this paper towel. I have here, actually right here, I have 5 cups of this basmati. I use the Aahu Bara rice. I don't know if you can come way back here, but the rice is being soaked over here. I can move this bowl up for you guys so you guys get a better picture of it. We can bring it right here. So this bowl has been soaking now for a couple hours. We had a little bit of questions about the brand, and it's really important to get the right brand for the Afghan rice. I know a few of you texted me that your rice got really mushy last time. So all the basmati rices in the stores are not the same. Some of them, you need to boil less. Some of them are not as long grain. So those are the 2 brands that I recommended. Last time I did Baghlan. This time I'm doing Aahu Bara, just to show you that they're both equivalently, excellent. And these can be found at any Middle Eastern store. So I have about 5 cups that have been soaking for 2 hours. The next thing on the list is the 5 skinless chicken legs and 5 skinless chicken thighs. I have them right here. I actually chopped them up a little bit smaller, so it's like that whole quarter leg. I chopped them up in 3 pieces. You can have them in 2 pieces. It does not matter, whichever way you prefer. 3 medium yellow onions that are chopped right over here. We have 3 tablespoons of minced garlic right here. So you can see that. We are not professionals. This is our, second time doing this, and I hope that you guys see everything correctly. And if not, leave a comment and we can go over it. A packet of shredded carrots. So this is the topping to this famous rice. I'll move this over a little bit so you guys can see it. So I buy the already shredded packet that is found in the salad section of the grocery store. This is 1 packet. Sometimes when I do more rice, I'll do 2 packets. Then we have here a cup of raisins. I don't know if it's cup or half a cup. What did I put down here? A cup. So it's a cup of black raisins, and then half a cup of slivered almonds. And then the pistachio I put as optional. Some Afghans will do the entire dish without any of the nuts. If you have nut allergies, it can be just as equivalently delicious with the raisins and the carrots. So those are those ingredients. And then 3 tablespoons of sugar. We have sugar here that I'll measure out. I have a teaspoon and a half of cardamom, which is this spice right here. This will be going into the carrots, as you guys will see later. And then half a teaspoon of black pepper. I have spices for the meat already measured out right here. This is the salt. I have black pepper, turmeric, coriander. Anything you like to flavor the meat with is fine. If you want it to be a little bit spicier, I don't do hot food, but if you want to put in a little bit of spiciness in that, you can go ahead and do that. The only thing I think, the 12 cups of water, I have measured out over here, the 12 cups of water. And if you have that, please go ahead and turn that on high so that it can start boiling for when we're ready to put the rice in it. One thing I'm missing on my list that I know we have is tomato paste. I don't have my tomato paste out. So maybe we can get tomato paste, Yusuf, from up there, take that down. And then I put 2 or more, depending on how much you want to brown it. I use this Kitchen Bouquet browning seasoning. If you don't want to use this, you don't have to. The color will just come out a little bit lighter. And there's also another technique, if I have a minute, to show you guys where Afghans, we burn a little bit of sugar in oil, and they use that also as a natural way to brown it. And that's about it. So we'll go ahead and get started with the meat. Also, if you guys can heat up your ovens to about 375 degrees. So when we're ready to put no, it's not tomato paste. Go and look in the garage then. I think we have plenty over there. Maybe I didn't bring it in. So if you guys could heat up your ovens to 375 degrees, so then we can go ahead and start. And then we're going to go ahead and heat up the pot that you're going to make the chicken in. So typically I use a pressure cooker. Today I'm not using a pressure cooker or an Instapot because I want everybody to be able to do this with whatever size pot you have. I use a pot that I can also, the handles are, they're not the plastic handles that I can put in the oven. Typically when I cook for a large gathering, just crack that open. Typically when I cook for a large party, I brown and sear the meat, put all the seasoning in here, and then I stick it in the oven. And then it cooks for me in the oven. So we can do that. If your pot cannot go in the oven, which I had some feedback, some sisters said we don't have that, you can let it just boil on top of the oven while we're getting the rest of the items ready. So what we're gonna do first is brown these onions, and today Yusuf will be helping me again. He is my sous chef, so I appreciate him. Yusuf is 16 years old. You want to say assalamu alaikum? Say hi to everybody. You were silent last time. Everybody was like, "Can you talk?" So, the other feedback I received last time was that we didn't measure out the oil. I just drizzled it. So I am going to measure out oil. This is a half a cup. And I'll see based on our visual if this is. So half a cup of oil actually might do the job.
Wait, lost.
Why is it facing that way? What happened? Is it disconnected on the bottom?
20 minutes.
So What happened?
It's on the wrong.
Hmm?
It's on the wrong camera.
Are we on right now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry guys, we had some technical difficulties happening. So we're heating up the oil right here. And it's about half a cup of oil to brown our onions in.
There.
Sorry guys, I don't know what happened there. Do we lose, is everybody okay? So that was half a cup of oil to brown the onions in. Go ahead and put that in there.
Yeah, hot, right?
Yeah, you're gonna need to have a glove out for yourself. So while Yusuf is browning the onions, this might take a little bit. I feel like we might fall behind today a little bit. Make sure you have your water boiling back here for the rice. And then I'll go over while he's browning that. This is gonna be the chicken that goes into that right here. So as soon as you feel like it's sizzling a little bit, you go ahead and call me, okay? In the meantime, I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about the eggplant, which is gonna be next. Let's see. I just wanna make sure that there's nobody still trying to get on. Okay, so I'm gonna move the chicken over here so that when it's ready, it can be browned in there. So the eggplant that we make is called Borani Banjan. And I said 2 eggplants, I just have 3, but I'm gonna do 2. There's 2 methods of the eggplant that we prepare. The traditional method is that we fry them individually. So I'm gonna slice these up for you guys. I can do this over here. And then basically, traditionally you would individually fry each of the eggplants in a frying pan, which we'll get on there once the chicken's done, and then layer it with the sauce afterwards. A shortcut that a lot of people do is they will spray a baking pan and then put all of the slices of the eggplant on the baking sheet, drizzle some oil on it, and bake it to soften it up. We're not trying to cook them fully, and make sure your eggplants are washed and dried up. Some people like to salt the eggplant to allow the water to drain. I don't do that. I think it's fine the way it is. And the way you want to cut it is basically about, I would say about half an inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch, I'm sorry.
I think it's 1/4 of an inch.
Maybe a quarter of an inch. Half an inch, okay. A lot of opinions in here. So you can slice these up right here. Banjan is something that I think in Afghanistan, you can make it out of other items. They make like a squash banjan, they make a zucchini banjan. It's the process of making it, frying it, and then putting the tomato sauce and the yogurt sauce all over it. That makes it banjan. We also have not an eggplant, this is eggplant, a pumpkin banjan. That's very popular in the fall. And that one has a little bit of a sweeter taste to it. I'll move these for you guys right here. I only have an hour and a half, but like my goal is to be able to show you guys little techniques and things that we use traditionally in our home. And maybe post Ramadan, we can have, you know, some different classes and we can learn some different techniques from different cultures. I had a lot of feedback on Afghan food and typical, like, do you measure, do you not measure? Typically, I don't measure. So this has been a learning process for me as well, so that I can, you know, if we want to teach others our techniques, we should have some sort of measurement. So now our eggplant is ready for frying. Move these out of the way. How is it going over there? Yeah. Okay. So it's starting to brown a little bit. In Afghanistan, this browning of the meat is a very essential step in cooking meat. It's called, what is it called? So, what is it?
Searing.
In English, it's called searing. And it ensures to like really keep the juices inside and the flavor inside. If you typically just put meat and you boil it, you lose a lot of the flavor. So in the beginning of all of our dishes, we basically sear the meat. We don't do it that much here. Like my mom will do it a lot more than me. Last time she watched the show, she had a lot of feedback for me. But traditionally, our moms would kind of get them really, really browned up. I typically don't do a lot of that because I don't have time, and I've heard it's not very good for you to be, frying meat that long. So in order to get that same kind of flavor, I do a smaller, shorter time on the oven, and then I stick my meat in the oven. And when I stick my meat in the oven, it gives it that color, the roasted flavor, all of that gets pretty enhanced. So right now we're gonna go ahead and add the chicken. So like I said, this can be done with red meat. I actually prefer red meat, Qabili Palau. And I'm gonna bring all the spices over. I don't know how everybody else is doing, but I'm gonna go ahead and add the salt. The salt is measured to the 5 cups of rice. So there's 5 teaspoons of salt. And then all the other measurements that I gave for the, I think they're on that ingredient sheet, have been pre-measured for me for today. I had another question that came in from a couple of my friends on how you get your boys to cook. I'm gonna put half of the garlic in here that we've chopped up. We're gonna save the rest of it for later. Yeah, I can take over from here. And what I'll have, you can move to that side. Sorry, did I get in the way? Okay. So I got a lot of questions on how do you get the boys to cook? Well, there's been a lot of blessings that have happened with COVID. I have 3 older boys, and they're kind of all in their teenage years, so they eat a lot, alhamdulillah. So this COVID, this period of time has really gotten them to come in the kitchen and help. There are blessings in this isolation that we all have to recognize. And one of them is that, my kids have become a little bit more active in the kitchen. Prior to Ramadan, when the quarantine happened, we had 3 meals a day and there's just a lot of things happening. So I asked, and we had a little meeting, and I was like, guys, we gotta help out. So, every child has their own, what they like to do, what they like to contribute, what they don't. So some people have cooking in them, others, they could settle for just very, simple meals, which is fine too. Everybody has their thing. So I think with food generally, and cooking and feeding others in the home, I think it really brings the family together. So it's a challenge, and it's time consuming, and these dishes can be hard sometimes, but at the end, when we all sit together and enjoy something, it's a really pleasant experience. Another thing I encourage parents, which is sometimes challenging, whoever's cooking, whether it's the mom or the dad, is to allow for error, allow for mess up, allow for spills. Sometimes I think kids are eager to come in and help and kind of do something and participate, but obviously they may mess up or they may do something inaccurately, and we critique them or criticize them, and that can turn them away from wanting to contribute. I'm gonna go back there. So,
Speaker, we have a question.
I just wanted to grab my tomato.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I can't hear. Can you guys put the volume on? Go ahead.
There was a question on what you put in the chicken so far.
Okay.
Like
So
the spices, which ones were in there?
okay. I want to follow what I've posted, so I read it to you guys accurately. I put cumin, which is the flavor for the palau. It's this little one right here. This one actually ran out today, so I had to open this larger one. You want to film this? It's cumin. It is, I put some turmeric. If you don't have it, it's okay. Coriander, salt, and pepper. Basically, that's it, and garlic. This is another seasoning that I wanted to talk to you guys about. It wasn't on the list, it's optional. They sell it at Persian stores. So Afghan Palau, typically, our seasoning is made fresh. And so it's a combination of like cumin seeds, coriander seeds, nutmeg, and usually like our mom like grinds it and gives you a packet. Every household has their own combination of palau. Cumin is one of the standard ones, so I included that for the flavor. We buy the seeds and we literally have the little coffee grinder and they grind palau mix, and then they give us like a little jar and then we have it. I personally have not done that, but I want to say that Afghans, each household has their own little mix of palau seasoning. What I have used quite often is this cumin, and then I have found this little rice seasoning in the Persian grocery stores. It's called Avide Polo. What is it called? Aahu Palau, and you know, it's just as good. And it actually, I was reading it today to see what it has. It has cinnamon, cumin, cardamom, ginger, cloves. So it pretty much has everything that we put, and it's pre-made. Obviously, my mom and my mother-in-law and everyone else would say that when you freshly grind spices, the flavor of your palau is amazing. Like the aroma takes over your house, and we know that, we agree to that. But I understand all of us that are busy with kids and running around, a few shortcuts here and there come in handy. So this is also something to look out for. This is just as good. It smells very aromatic. It does its job. So that's what's in the chicken right now. Any other questions before we move on? So in order to prepare for this meal, I went and I read, because after our last cooking show, I got a lot of Afghans calling me and telling me, oh, you forgot to do this, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. So this time I was like, okay, yeah, they're right. Everyone, the thing with Afghan food is everyone has their own little family secret or what they do. So I personally did not know how to cook prior to marriage at all. I had watched my mom with parties and everything, but I didn't know anything. So palau, actually, when I started cooking it, which is palau is our brown colored rice, I asked my mother-in-law, because my mother-in-law, Ahmed's mom, Zaidi's mom, actually had measurements. And so that was really exciting for me as a new married wife trying to learn how to make things. And she uses tomato paste in her palau. And tomato paste, some families use and some families don't. So don't call me if you don't use it. But it's one of those things. Some people put it in their palau, some people don't put it in their palau. I like it. I think it gives it more of like that, that red and brown color that I'm looking for. But traditionally, like I grew up in a house where my mom didn't use it. So, and her palau was just as tasty. So there's a lot of variation in Afghan cooking in everybody's household, the region they're from, the area they're from. So I may not be doing it correctly. This is how I've done it for years. But I do put some tomato paste. And I think I said 3 tablespoons in the recipe, but I'm thinking that might be too much. So I'm going to start with 2 and see how that goes. Let me grab my spoon here. So, okay. I got a lot of this critique that I wasn't accurately measuring. It doesn't really matter. It's not an exact science. So let's see how 2 does, and then I'll tell you if we're going to put the 3rd. We might put the 3rd in. But it's not like if you mess up or if you put 2 or you put 3, because it's an optional, like the tomato paste is not absolute and 100% guaranteed. It's okay. I mean, I think this one's okay. The two should be fine. So my tablespoon is the one that we're eating with. It's not the actual little measurement. So this probably is, if you measured through a regular measuring spoon, it's probably that 3 tablespoons. That's probably why I put that on the ingredient list. But that's starting to look good now. Oh, and can you turn the water on the kettle just so we can have some boiling water? Yusuf, please. Thank you. So this looks like it's getting
Is that worse than what?
Yeah, you maybe want to fill that up. Alrighty. So we'll leave the tomato paste over here for later. And now I'm gonna do my browning sauce. I wanna demonstrate for you guys the Afghan way of browning it without turning, it's kind of dangerous. The house can get on fire. There's a lot of smoke. But let me do what I do here. Did I say 2 for this and the ingredients? Let's do 1. I'm not filling this up. I'm just doing estimating 2 tablespoons. And this is what's gonna give it that color. So when we make the Qabili Palau, it's not brown rice. Please don't try to make it brown rice. The texture will be very different. This is actually white rice that we use the broth of chicken or the broth of lamb or beef, a little bit of the different seasonings and sauces to make the stew colored. Please make sure you have your ovens ready to stick this in because I'm going to stick mine in the oven. If you want to have it boil on top of the oven, that's your option as well. I was talking to my mom today and she actually told me that Qabili Palau is very tasty when you make it from the chicken with the skin on it. I actually have skinned this, so just to be a little bit healthier, and I will add oil to it later when we're gonna get the rice ready. But right now, this is skinless chicken leg. So as you can see, it's coming together quite well. And now I'm gonna measure the amount of water I put in here because I know last time I just drizzled it. It confused everybody. Do you guys want me to stop for a little bit? How are you guys doing with your chicken? Does the chicken look like this in your houses right now? Are you getting any comments, Chef Jamal? Are we doing good? Let me know if I need to slow down. We're gonna put enough water in here to get it cooked in the oven. And then once it cooks for maybe, let's see, it's 5:29, maybe about 20 minutes or less. Then what we're gonna do is remove the chicken and use the broth to cook the rice in. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some water in it just because we're trying to get done on time. If you have hot water, it'll cook faster. So we typically boil. I'm gonna start with 2 cups and see how much that is. Yeah, I would say 2 cups is more than plenty. 2 cups of water, and we're gonna give it a stir. So I typically like it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to add another tablespoon of my browning sauce. And then if I have a minute, I'll demonstrate to you guys later on how, so in Afghanistan, there's 2 ways. They would either brown sugar on oil, and that would give it that color, or they would, the original way is they would brown onions. And they would brown onions to the point where it would become so brown that it would color their palau. So now that we have this all mixed together, what I'm going to do is cover it. And chicken cooks fast, and that's the reason I picked this meat for today's dish, because with lamb, we would have to keep it in the oven a lot longer, or I typically use the Instapot when I'm making red meats. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover this. And our temperature of our stove is at 375. And I'm gonna go ahead and stick this pot in the oven so we can start on our I might put this up, we're at 530. I might put this up to 400 just to see if we can get this done a little bit quicker. So I will put it for maybe 15 minutes and then check on it. I don't want it to get too stuffed. Okay, so we have it at 15 minutes, and then we'll go ahead over here and demonstrate the frying of the eggplant. So we do have the, actually what I'm going to do is move this over here. This is Water boiling. The water, can you close up on here a little bit? So the water is starting to get hot. Once it boils, we can go ahead and start boiling the rice to have it ready for when the chicken broth is going to come out. So in a large skillet, frying pan, I'm sorry, I have to move over there to get my oil. All right. So I'm going to demonstrate to you guys the two ways of doing the eggplant. So on a large skillet, we're going to do, this is half a cup, which is too much. I'm going to do a quarter of a cup of oil. Lower the temperature a little bit. It looks like our skillet is too hot. Let me grab a couple of forks. So this is the traditional way. And eggplant, I'm gonna lower this a little bit. Eggplant typically, can I get another plate to pull these out of? Eggplant typically absorbs a lot of oil. So as you saw, that was like a third of a cup. And we're not trying to cook them fully right now. What we do is we just cook them a little bit on each side, and then we transfer them to another plate. Can I have that plate? The purpose is just to cook it halfway done.
We have a question, Mitra.
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you were to use the Instapot, how many minutes would you set to high pressure instead of putting it in the oven?
Okay. So for chicken, I would do 10 minutes, max maybe. For lamb or beef, I've done 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and it depends on the size of your Instapot, and it also depends on how much meat you have. So if it's just for my own family and it's like 5-6 pieces, it'll be quicker than when there's like, I have two sizes of Instapot, the big ones that are like, I think it's 8 cups or 8 quarter, I don't know how it's measured, but you have to play with the Instapot and get used to it. I do think that it varies depending on the portion, but chicken is really fast on an Instapot. So then I'm gonna remove these and go ahead and do another batch. And you just literally have to keep drizzling oil. So this is a fourth of a cup, and this was actually half of that. It depends on how oily you want this dish to be. So, you know, some people want it to be a little bit more healthy. They can use less oil. Traditionally, it's very oily. So you can kind of gauge that on your own, you know, preference. The other way that it's done, which I want to demonstrate, let me do that. Do we have a tray in here? Okay. So the other way that this is prepared is on a sheet. Can you get this on the film? Okay. So the other way is that you drizzle the oil on the cooking sheet. And then you place your eggplants on the sheet. I'll just use the eggplant to spread it, right? Just like this. And I'll put a few for you guys in the oven to see what the difference is. I do think we have another sheet available. So this is for when you don't feel like frying it one by one and you want to just get it done all together. So, and then again, on top of it, maybe do another fourth of a cup of oil, or you can also use a brush. You can just brush this all over the tops, and then we stick this in the oven. I'm gonna flip these over real quick. A lot of people do this method now. Nobody wants to stand and fry eggplant. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in the oven. I believe it should take like 10 minutes. And so this already says that it has 10 minutes left, and we'll check on it. The goal is not to fully cook the eggplant. As you can see, I'm just lightly cooking it. We move it over here. Because a lot of the cooking will happen when you drizzle the sauce in between it. This is our last batch. There we go. I prefer this method, this traditional method. I do feel like there's a little bit of different taste when you do it this way, but I completely understand the shortcut and the oven method as well. It's a different world we're living in. Everybody's busy. And so a lot of people do that method as well. So there's no problem. It's your preference, honestly, what you want to do. When you let eggplant sit out a little bit, or if you salt it, the water releases. So sometimes a recommendation is before you fry it is to dry it, actually. Pat dry it with a paper towel so you can have less of the oil, get water on it so it won't burn you. So that's about it. This is 2 eggplants, which is really a little bit, but it goes a long way. Alrighty, now we move this to the side. And I'm actually going to move the, can I have a minute to just go this way? Sorry. I'm actually going to move the water, the boiling water onto the front so that it can boil quicker and we can use the back to make the sauce for the eggplant. Okay, so this is the 12 cups of water that I recommended. And over here, what I'm going to start with on this back burner, let's check before we start the eggplant sauce. Let's check on the water right here. Okay, it's almost there. I'm gonna let this boil. And then in this back burner over here, what I'm going to do is again, drizzle about 1/4 of a cup of oil. And now we're going to prepare in this saucepan. Maybe should I move it up in the middle? Is it easier to see here? Okay. So then the other minced garlic, can you see that? The remaining of your minced garlic goes in that oil. You just fry this a little bit. And then to this, on the ingredients of our eggplant, it had said to have 2 large tomatoes diced. So I'm going to add this. So the shortcut for this would be we don't use any fresh tomatoes and we just do the tomato paste. But fresh tomatoes always gives the eggplant, just a little bit extra flavor. So we're gonna let this cook down a little bit before we add to it. Maybe over here we can start working on this oil. Trying to figure out all what's good. So while the tomatoes simmer just for a little bit, we'll let them cook down a little bit. I'll go ahead. How's everybody doing? I know I'm jumping around again. That's kind of hard to keep up with. So we have 2 things that we're going to prep here while we're waiting for the tomatoes. We have the carrots and the toppings of the Qabili Palau, which I'll wait on for a few minutes because I want to boil the rice before I do this. And then the other item is the chaka, which is the sauce that we're going to do over the eggplant dish. So I put the Lebanon. Did you guys not bring me the Lebanon? I think it's in the garage. Sorry, Yusuf. Okay. So on the ingredients for the Borani Banjan's huge, a big part of it is a cup of that yogurt that we put over the Borani. And the yogurt that I use is this Greek yogurt. It's the 5% fat. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure out, or you can use Lebanon, which I forgot to put out, but what I like to do is use half and half. It's okay. So these tomatoes are just boiling down and reducing a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and add the tomato paste and all the spices that go in there. So this is the other, just one spot. This is the other ingredient right here. So what I'm gonna do is do half and half. This makes it really, really rich. And it just makes it very creamy. So go ahead.
Mitra, when you did the eggplant, when you were frying it, was there any spices on it at that point, or is it just plain fried?
No, it's just plain fried.
Okay.
The only thing sometimes people do that you can is salt it a little bit, but it was just plain fried.
Got it. Thank you.
So the lebne, and now I'm trying to do like maybe a cup of lebne and yogurt mixed together. And then what I want to do to this is maybe add about 1/3 of a cup of water or less to kind of dilute it. So I'll get some water from here. So once you add this into can you stir the tomatoes? Then what you're gonna do is just, easier done in the bowl, is just to dilute it a little bit so that you have the topping ready. Now, in this topping, you can put freshly chopped mint. Yeah, you could put mint as well, but freshly chopped garlic is what I was saying, which I don't have any more of right this moment. So what I'm going to do is what I showed you guys last week or 2 weeks ago, is that I buy this crushed garlic that I really, really like. And I'm just gonna add this to the yogurt real quick. I'm trying to stick to my ingredients from what I gave you, but I would typically just eyeball it. I think I said half a teaspoon of this garlic, and you just add it to this yogurt mix. And you just mix it up. Try to kind of get all the bumps out. Wow, I think I just got some on my glasses. Paper towel. I need to be able to see you guys. How is everybody doing? How's everybody keeping up? Am I going too fast? I'm trying to go a little bit slower than last time. I don't know if I'm gonna make the deadline if I go slower, but I wanna give everybody time to work on all these items. And these are just 2 items, but they're 2 intricate items. So it says, let's see, how much salt did I put in here? Oh, I didn't put salt on the list. Wow. Okay, so we're gonna have to put salt, and then also it says half a teaspoon of garlic powder. I like garlic powder in here as well.
Should I go with this or is it fine?
No, it's fine. I'm gonna come over there. So a little bit of garlic powder, and I would say about half a teaspoon of salt as well. Some people put the dry mint in here as well, and that also flavors it, which I have some right over here. I have no measurement for that, maybe just like half a teaspoon in your hand, like that much. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's okay. And then we just mix that in here. And then we also save the remainder of the mint to put on top of it. It looks pretty good to me. It does look like it needs a little bit more water just so it could spread evenly on the eggplant. So I'm gonna add, I guess I did a 1/4. Oh, I didn't finish all of it, so maybe that's why. So let me just dilute it a little bit more. And it's all a preference. If you like your yogurt chunky on top of the eggplant, that's fine. If you like it a little bit more creamy, that's fine as well. So no problem.
With the tomatoes, you're just cooking down the tomatoes with the garlic. Is that what's happening on the stove?
Yeah, tomato, garlic, and now I'm going to put the tomato paste, which I think over here, I missed it on the ingredients, but we'll go ahead and put it in here. I would say like a good 2 heaping spoons of tomato paste, which would probably be like maybe 4 tablespoons. Yusuf is my mathematician telling me I'm doing all of these ingredients wrong. Measurements. So that's probably like 4 tablespoons, right? Okay, 4 tablespoons. And then continue to mix it. Yeah, the oven is done. And I'm gonna lower this tomato sauce so I can attend to something else right now without this burning. So I'm gonna check on the oven because it's beating on me. Actually, let me turn off the timer and leave it alone for a second because I do wanna get the rice in because the water is boiling. I can see if you could put it on the rice right now, you can see the water is boiling. So what we need to do, I need you guys to move back right now so I can bring the rice over here, is to, this rice right here, we need to drain. We need to drain the water from this and put it in the pot. So I just typically use my hand. It's not a big deal to get some of this cold water in there, but try to get as much of it out as you can. Like that. And then we come over here. Careful not to burn yourself while you're doing this. If you notice, when you soak rice, it actually expands. So you have a lot more than when you don't soak it. So I just use the heated water. Let's look at the timer. I know last time 5:48. So we are starting to boil the rice at 5:48.
Someone's asking if they can use Instapot instead of the oven for rice. Oven or stove?
Instapot for rice is a little tricky. You can use a rice cooker. So there's two electric devices. We have the Instapot, which is a pressure cooker. Some Instapots actually have a rice cooker option on it. So if you have that option, you can use it. But there is a rice cooker that you can use to make this rice. It's just, that's a whole different method. And maybe one day we can do a rice cooker palau option because it'll be different. So I'm gonna let this boil. Let me put the lid on. So I had people call me on how long this is supposed to boil. I think based on the consensus, it's about 8 minutes. But again, it depends on the portions and how much you actually have. This is a larger portion, so we're gonna try that. It was 5:48. I'm gonna check on it in about, I'm sorry? What is it? 5:51. Oh, then my clock is a little bit off. So I wanna check on the chicken and the eggplant that's in the oven right now, because the timer did go off on those. So we can see what's going on here. So let me show you the eggplant. The eggplant is done. I mean, it's pretty equivalent of what we did over here. I think the only difference is it like dries it out a little bit more than when you fry it, just because of the air and the and sometimes they get a little softer.
The tomatoes on the stove, was there any water in that?
The tomato on the stove, no, it's completely waterless. Look at it. This is how it's doing right now. It's just oil, tomato paste, and tomatoes. I just lowered that because I can't get to it right now and I don't want it to burn. But let me get this eggplant out and then I'll pull the chicken out so we can look at it as well. I'm gonna move this over here. Now I'm gonna check on the chicken. Let's see how this is doing. So the way we test our chicken, the way I test our chicken is to kind of see if the meat has softened up. How many minutes did we put it in, Yusuf? Do you remember? 20 minutes, right? So
15, I think.
15, yeah.
15, okay. So this chicken right now is like not fully cooked, but it is softened a bit, okay? Yeah, so the bottom pieces have softened. This is hot, don't grab this from me. Oh, you're trying to see. You guys see that? So for palau, it's okay if the chicken is not fully cooked, because what we're gonna do at the end is once we mix all the rice together, we're gonna put this back over the rice into the oven. So I'm okay with it being like this. If you prefer not to put it back over the rice, which is another methodology, it's okay. Then you can stick it back in the oven or cook it a little bit longer. But for me, right now, this is good. So I'll give you an example. Let me get a fork. Can you put this down? It's hot. Actually, let me put it down. So we did 15 minutes. In 20 minutes, I think it would have been fully cooked, but I'm going to show you guys. So I think I'm going to have to use my hand, but look at it. It's cooked, but it's not like falling off the bone cooked, you know? So it's just like, it's medium cooked. See that? I just want to show you. So when it's at this level, it's okay because we're going to, at the end, put this back in the oven with the rice. So at this moment, what we need to do is pull the chicken out so we can create the base. Let me grab a dish from over here. So what I'm going to do is kind of take the chicken out, but leave the broth in because the broth is what I'm going to have to work with for the palau. And actually this is quite, you know, you might be able to use less of this broth that's needed in here. But we'll see in just a second. Can you get me a bigger spatula, Yusuf? Maybe the one with the holes in it. Yeah. Try to leave as much of the juice of it as you can in the pot. Maybe I need a bigger dish. Put this over here. What are we doing on time? It's 6 o'clock. How's everybody else doing? Are we at this stage with me, or am I going too fast, too slow? Not really sure. We're almost done.
It seems to me that your pace is easier to follow this time.
Okay. I also eliminated, I think last time we had like 3 dishes. So while this chicken is sitting here, what I want to do is to check on my rice. And you can use the spoon. It doesn't matter because the rice will be flavored with the spoon anyways. So I'm going to just give my rice a stir and see how it's doing. So now it's been almost 7 minutes. And the goal is to cook the rice, oops, sorry, al dente. And I think we're at that al dente point. Let's see. I'll give it like maybe 1 or 2 more minutes and I'll leave it open so it doesn't get too soft. This is where the rice getting soft can become a problem. When some people texted me that our rice got really sticky. If you're really worried about it, leave it, cook it open with the open lid, because when you close it, obviously it's going to get softer. And then when it's open, you can consistently check on it. But sometimes when you forget, you know, when it's closed. So move it up and down. I'll just leave it for just a little bit longer. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna do the oil for the broth that we're gonna put back into it. I had to pause on my.
How much water did you put for each cup of rice? And did you soak it first?
I did soak mine first. I put 12 cups total of water for, I think, I have a little bit more than 5 cups. So I would say for 5 cups, you could do 10. 5 cups of rice, 10 cups of water. I think mine was like 5.5, so I have 12 cups in mine. Maybe before I start, we can check on this one more time. So I started, yeah, I think it's ready to be drained. So I started, Yusuf, what time was the clock? 5:49?
Yeah, it's been 7 minutes.
So it's been like 7 to 8 minutes. Can you guys pull the camera back now so I could show them how to do this part? Okay, so this is where I strain it. There is another way to do this. And the other way is that you don't strain it and you actually cook the rice in that chicken broth. It's a different style of making Qabili. It's called dampoch. And a lot of us do it that way. And I also have done it that way. The reason I'm showing you guys this way is this is the traditional method. And also, if you're not an expert at the other method, it can get soft on you faster. So I tend to do it this way just to keep it safe. Now, if we come back over here, I'm going to prepare this broth for you guys, which is going to, so for each cup, for each cup of rice, we're gonna do a tablespoon. I'm gonna see how this works, a tablespoon. This is not a tablespoon, this is less than a tablespoon. Alrighty, so let's see. 1/3 of a cup, half a cup, okay. I need a tablespoon. I can't find a tablespoon, guys. All right, here's a tablespoon. So palau, also traditionally, some people like it. Typically, it's a very oily rice. And at the end, I don't do this, but Afghans would like heat up oil and put it on top of the rice. But I don't do that. So I'm going to do 5 tablespoons, 1 tablespoon per cup. And I'm going to do a little bit extra. I like it a little bit oilier. So that's 3, 4, 5, I'm gonna do 6. Oops, a little bit more than 6. Now this is where I would taste it. The one thing that you need to make sure of is it needs to taste a little salty to your tongue. And I already put 5 tablespoons of salt in it. But if you want to add any other spices, right now is the time. So we have cumin, or I can add a little bit of this rice. And if you have cumin, you can sprinkle a little bit of cumin in here right now to make it tasty. I'm going to put a little bit of this rice seasoning. You don't have to, you know, the broth of the chicken can do its work. If you want it to be darker, you could add a little bit more of that darkening. I'm just going to put a little bit of the spice on it, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and mix it. I don't know how much water this chicken basically produced on its own. So I'm going to have to eyeball it over here to see if it's too watery when I put the rice in. So we put the rice back in. I know I put 5 cups of rice. Mine is closer to 6, just because it was the end of the bag and I wanted to finish it. So mine is a little bit more probably than you guys's. Make sure your oven is still going. And then we're gonna go ahead and pour this broth. And I'm gonna pour half of it first just to kind of mix it up. We don't want it to be too moist, but let's see. You have to be very gentle when you are mixing up the palau because you don't want to break the rice. You know, that's the whole thing. We want to mix the flavors, but we don't want to break it. And I'm always worried that it's not salty. So at this point, I'll put a little dash of salt, a little bit more of the cumin powder fresh. It looks so good so far. So it shouldn't be like drenched. If you have a lot of broth that was released from the chicken, you don't need to put all of it. It shouldn't look like it's drenched. So I wish some people could take some pictures and send it to me. I'm trying to figure out if I should put the remainder of this broth, if I have space. Like since it's not fully drenched, I'm going to put a little bit more of it. You don't want it to get too drenched because then that'll also make your rice very sticky. So I'm going to just put maybe a little bit of it and just stop short of. I'm just worried that if it gets too moist, then it won't stay fluffy, which I think cooking is something you have to, it's interesting when we put the flyers out that I was making Afghan food, everybody wants to learn how to make mantu and qabili and like a lot of the hard dishes that, it takes a while to perfect. Even like, I've been cooking, I don't know, 20 years now. And, my first dishes did not taste great. So I hope that through practice, you guys can perfect, this procedure. So I'm gonna go ahead and place the meat on top of it. I'm just gonna use my hands. It's easier that way. If my meat has not, sometimes, your meat is really, really soft. If it has softened too much, I won't do this. And I'll just keep it separate in a pot. And when it's time to take it out, I'll go ahead and just arrange it underneath the palau. But since, my meat was just like, it's a perfect, I think it can handle a little bit more cooking. It's hot. I'm gonna go ahead and use my spatula. And I think, I typically overcook meat. I'm saying I think this portion is a lot. I figured like 10, this could serve 2 families. So I figured 10 legs of chicken. If we split it between 2 families, they each get 5. But when I cut it into 3 pieces, we got a bunch more little pieces. So therefore, it's kind of a lot. And I'm sure we probably need to eat less of it. I put it on top. It also gets this really nice brown color when you put it in the oven. Okay. Yeah, my pot could have been bigger for this much meat. I'm gonna put this on there. And I'm gonna leave some holes for steaming. And then we'll see how that goes. I do use foil. Traditionally, if you wanna do it on top of the oven, you would use a towel and you would wrap the top of it with the towel. But I'm gonna go ahead and do this for you guys. What are we doing on time? It's 6:04. Okay. So we're gonna put it on the high temperature for 10 minutes, and then you can leave it on the low temperature all the way up to an hour if you want. We'll pull it out sooner. But the high temperature for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 max. Like that. Let's see. Timer, I'll do 15 on the high, or maybe we'll do, whoops. I'll do like 12 minutes on the high, and then after that, we'll lower the temperature. All right. We got quite a few more things to get going here. So we have this eggplant that I stopped. Let me move all of this out of the way so I can show you guys how I do that. And then in the same time, I'm going to use this frying pan over here to do the carrots. I just need to rinse it really quickly. Alrighty, so all of these out of the way. We can start out fresh and clean. I'm sure when you guys cook in your kitchens and you're not on the show, you guys can handle the mess that comes about. Okay, so.
What was the high temperature?
I'm sorry?
What was the temperature on the high?
In the oven?
Yeah.
400.
Okay.
Okay, so I washed the frying pan that we were using for the eggplants. And I'm going to start up the sauce again that was working its way in the back. Can you heat this water up? Okay. So I'm going to do 2 things at the same time to get done on time. So in this frying pan is for the carrots. I'm going to put, let's see, about 1/4 of a cup of oil. Okay. So some traditions or some families put the carrots and the raisins inside of the oven with the pot. As you saw, my pot wasn't gonna have any room. So I'm frying the carrots first. So the carrots are the ones that takes a little bit longer because they're carrots. And we'll go ahead and saute these a little bit. Let's see how much of I can get. Okay.
How much broth was on the rice?
So the broth on the rice, if you followed when I cooked the chicken, at the very end I put 2 cups of water. If you remember when we were cooking the chicken, at the very end I put 2 cups of water, and then we put it in the oven, and it kind of released a little bit more water. I didn't measure that after we took it out of the oven. So I would say between, if I added 2 cups, it was probably about 4 cups of the broth that I added to the end of the pot. I added 2, it probably released 2, but I didn't measure it.
Okay. And the rice
You don't
and
want the pot to be drenched. You want the broth to flavor the rice, but you don't want like a whole massive amount of water on the bottom. So do you guys get that? Like as long as all of your rice gets immersed in it, it's a little bit dewy and moist, but it's not like sitting in water. So to these carrots, because carrots in the United States, or these shredded carrots at least, are not very sweet, we're gonna add the 3 tablespoons of sugar to these carrots. So we add the 3 tablespoons of sugar, and then we also add a little bit of cardamom, probably like half a teaspoon. So I'll measure this on my hand. It just gives it a little bit of a flavor. Actually, I need some more. And then a little bit of black pepper and a little bit of salt. It just gives it a little bit of flavor. Can you bring me the salt, Lisa? A little bit, just a very little bit. That's about it. A dash. Lisa, can you give me a cup of water and the hot water so I can put it in the tomato sauce? Can I lower it?
Measure or not?
Yes, in the measuring cup. 2 cups. The measuring cup's right there. So we let this fry a little bit. And these carrots can take a while, so some people will steam it, or some people will cover the lid, which we will do later. Some people will wrap this in foil and put it on top of the palau, the rice that we put inside the oven. So this is 2 cups of water that we're adding to the tomato in the back here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you guys see that? Keep an eye on the carrots. You don't want to burn them. I have them on a little bit higher. I'll put it on medium. And then this is the sauce we're preparing for the banjan. So I have 2 cups of water, the tomato paste, the fresh tomatoes, and now I'm going to add my spices to that. Garlic powder, coriander, what else? Black pepper and salt. I'm going to lower the sauce a little bit. So we'll add a tablespoon of garlic powder. We already added some garlic in the beginning, fresh garlic, and now we're doing garlic powder. We'll do a tablespoon. Sorry, I don't want this to burn. We'll do a tablespoon of coriander. If you like your banjan to be spicy, I put there on the ingredient cayenne pepper. This would be the time to add your cayenne pepper, and then I'm adding a tablespoon of turmeric as well. Afghans do eat spicy food. I'm told that I'm not pure Afghan or something because I don't tolerate and then I put black pepper, so I'll do like a half a tablespoon of the black pepper. That's the farthest I go with my spices.
Doctora, there was a question.
Yeah.
When was the first time you added 2 cups water to the chicken other than right before you put it in the oven? Also, how many cups would you say the carrots are? Sorry for all the questions.
Okay, so the carrots, they came in a bag because I bought them from the salad section and it said 10 ounces on the package. So the package said 10 ounces, so it's probably like a cup and a half or a cup and a quarter. So you can make it more or less. In Afghanistan, they would, slice and julienne fresh carrots. When I was making the chicken, it was just the onions, the chicken, all the spices, and at the very end, I put 2 cups of water, hot water. That was it. I didn't add any more water to it at any time. The other cups that I'm accounting for is when you cook meat, it releases water itself. So when I said 4 cups, probably, it's because of the chicken releasing the water. I didn't add an additional 2 cups, if that makes sense. So the carrots are looking like they're getting together. So I'm gonna add the rest of these, which is the raisins. And then I'll let them roast a little bit. And I need to switch these because this is important right here. Okay. Can you help me with this? Can you help move these items? Did we add salt to the eggplant yet? Did you guys see me add salt? Okay, so that's the one we're missing.
What was added to the tomatoes? Cardamom, turmeric, anything else?
All right, can you speak up a little bit? I can't hear you.
Question was, she added cardamom and turmeric in the tomatoes. Anything else? Also, where did she add garlic?
I did not add cardamom to the tomatoes, sorry. Make sure you don't add cardamom to the Banjan. The cardamom was added to the carrots. Cardamom is hale, right? And this went to the carrots. I mean, if you added it, it's okay, but I'm sorry, I'm doing 2 dishes at the same time. I added it to this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add the almonds and the pistachio so that I can mix it all together and move this off the stove so I can start with the eggplant. So I'm gonna move this to a back stove over here. It's still gonna fry a little bit. And I'm going to add to the bottom of this pan about 1/4 of a cup of oil so we can start the eggplant. We are a little tight on time, so coat the bottom of a flat pan. And then what we do is we kind of place the eggplants in this way so that we can add the sauce layer by layer. Like this. So this would be 1 layer. So can you get me like a soup ladle? And the one thing I did not add is the salt. So I would say about a tablespoon of salt goes into the sauce for the eggplant. So with the carrots and the nuts and the rice, what you could do now is have it on a lower temperature and cover it. Is this the cover? Yeah. So it will help steam it all up and soften it for the topping. I would put it on the low. I feel like my sauce is a little thick. You want to do a close-up of the sauce? Let's see. This is what your sauce looks like. We added the salt. Can you bring me the fresh mint, the mint right there? So now what I do is I take the soup ladle, is it ladle? And then I pour sauce. So this is very high. I need to lower the temperature a little bit. Just covering each eggplant. And then I do it again. And I add a little bit of the dried mint as well. what is it? Another thing I add is some freshly sliced. You guys can hear my palau temperature time for 12 minutes is up. So now I'm going to lower it to about 275 for the remainder 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Okay. And then we do the bell peppers. In between, another layer of eggplant, like this. And this goes for a good 20 minutes too, so I hope you guys can stick around to see the end product because it looks like we're running a little behind. Okay, let me put some more sauce. And here, if you want to add any kind of fresh peppers, for those who like the spicier Borani, any cayenne pepper, any of that would be good right about now. So I'm gonna just add these last two, add the last green eggplants, the green bell peppers. I do feel like my sauce is a little thick and I don't want it to burn. So maybe I'll add a little bit of water after. Let me add a little bit of water to the bottom of my sauce, maybe like half a cup, not a lot, to the last layer of sauce. And then I'll just, this will be the end. So what I typically do is I cook it on low, very long amount of time. It could go for half an hour, 45 minutes on a very low temperature. And you cover it. Do you guys have the lid for this? Oh, are these not the same? Okay, there. I'm gonna put it, just because we're kind of short on time, I'm gonna put it a little bit higher. Typically this takes about another 20 to 30 minutes of cooking down, and then it's time to assemble everything. And I'm gonna stop for questions now until we get everything ready to dish. For your 619, I think we'll be ready in maybe 15, 20 minutes. We'll see. I obviously haven't cooked live all the time, so maybe my time assumptions are a little bit off, but we're trying our best. So right now you have the carrots on, but on a very low temperature, and the steam of the lid will be cooking the remainder of the carrots, the nuts, and the raisins. So, any questions right now? We have time to chit chat a little bit. Sorry if I made any mistakes or if I went too fast. I'm trying to clear up the way so that we can have room for when it's time to basically dish out our meals today. How's everybody doing? Now is a good time to ask any questions if you have any. And I'll go ahead and see what we can talk about. Was that a little bit slower? I was trying my very best to, I know at the end there's quite a few things happening at the same time. And as you are progressing and learning these difficult dishes, you can do one dish at a time. There's a lot of meals you can, for example, a lot of people do their prep work before. So for Qabili, if I'm having a party, I will do the meat in the broth the day before. It stores very well. It cooks your, it gives you time on the day of your gathering to not have to cook the meat, the broth, everything on the same day. So the meat cooks very well the day before. You can refrigerate it. If you're working with a red meat, you can actually refrigerate it and have the fat solidify if you want to take that fat off and then replace it with grapeseed oil, olive oil, a healthier oil. The Borani, some people fry it in advance and they just keep it in the fridge so that on the day of, they just prepare the sauce. There's a lot of little tricks you can do to make the day of your gathering or the day of people coming over that you're not overwhelmed with multiple things to do at the same time. So do you have any questions, Chef Jamal, comments? Are we good? Can you close that cabinet?
Assalamualaikum, Metra.
Assalamualaikum. Who is it?
How are you? Jazakallah khair. This is Narjas.
Hi, Narjas. How are you?
How are you? We missed you guys. May Allah bless
You guys
you
very
and your
much
beautiful
do. We miss
family, Metra. Barakallahu feek. Inshallah, you'll be rewarded for every bite we take, inshallah, tonight.
Inshallah, inshallah, with all of your families. How are you? Are you cooking live?
I'm cooking live, and me and Jude
Oh,
are
wow.
literally running. I know you like slowed down the pace, but I'm asking mom, so I've got toddlers asking me things, and anyway.
No, ask. This is your time.
Okay, so I have a couple questions really quick.
Go ahead.
The rice and the chicken, where is it right now? Is it back in the oven?
Yeah, sorry, yes. I'm sorry. I don't know if you missed that, but it's back in the oven. Yes.
Okay, cool.
The rice and the chicken, you put it back in the oven and you keep it on high, which is like 400 for about 12 minutes. And then I lowered it to 275 for the remainder 20 minutes. When we make palau for an event, it could sit in the oven for 2 hours, 3 hours, as long as it's on warm. Once it's cooked, and if it's not overcooked, then it could actually, you could do it 2 hours in advance. But
Okay.
you have to get to that level where you are comfortable with leaving it because you know you've cooked it the right amount of time.
Got it. Okay, do you have any questions, Jude? No? Okay, I think we're good, Metra. Barakallah feek. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to see pictures of how it turns out at the end. Please.
You
go
got
ahead and
it.
send this to
I
me.
messed up on the tomato sauce, but that's okay. Hopefully it'll be okay.
You
I
know,
put a little-
even if you don't use fresh tomatoes, you can like quickly do it again with tomato paste, garlic.
I put cardamom in it. That's what I did.
Oh, you know what? You probably won't taste it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, cardamom is not too strong, and the tomato may overpower it. But yeah, I was doing two things at the same time. I could see the confusion because I put the cardamom in the carrots.
Thank you so much, Metra. Thank you. I'll let anyone else ask their questions. Shukran.
All right, thank you, Nargis. I don't know if the eggplant's gonna get done, but we'll see. Usually I like to cook the eggplant on low for a long time because it prevents it from burning and it gets really like gooey and moist. But we've speeded it up a little. We'll see how it goes. Any other questions, Chef Jamal? Anybody else?
I don't have any here. The people who are on Zoom, if you're, you should be able to unmute yourself if you have any questions or if you want to say anything to Dr. Mitra. You can just jump in like Nargis did. But on the chat list and stuff, there's no more right now. Only the last one was, that's a heavy pot. You make things look easy.
Yeah, that, it's not too heavy, but we kind of get used to it. This is actually a smaller amount. This is a good for maybe 10, 12 people. But, Afghan, sometimes parties are like 50 people. We have bigger pots. And that's when we do multiple kinds of, the reason that we have the multiple foods is not because we like to cook multiple foods, but it's because, we don't have a pot that's going to feed 50, 60 people. So I'll do like a white rice, a Kabuli, a pasta, just to be able to make sure we have sufficient food. But it really takes, some people are asking me about these questions from the first video, like it takes like a relationship with food, a relationship with cooking. We need to just be okay with the errors. And I think if we can give ourselves that permission, it'll become easier. I honestly feel like I'm trying really hard to give you guys measurements. And this was actually challenging for me, but alhamdulillah, like I think, trying to ballpark those measurements. But food is, something that, you have to kind of go based on your taste buds. Maybe one family eats a little bit saltier or a little bit more spicy or a little bit, they like it a little bit, drier or greasier. So I think it depends on every family. And so I think traditionally when families came over from Afghanistan, they were cooking a lot more with the heavier fats. At the end of this palau, what they would do was they would take a frying pan, heat up some oil, and then pour it on. And they still do that. Like all the aunties, they all do that. But I don't do that. The oil that I put in is usually like olive oil or grapeseed oil. Sometimes when I'm making the lamb, like I said, if you make it the day before, what you can do is when you put it in the fridge, you'll have like about a good thick 1 inch of the animal fat that you can actually remove. The problem is in Afghanistan, I'm sure those fats were needed for all the labor they did, right? So, women and men were working harder, moving, walking everywhere. So they ate those fats and they weren't fat, actually.
We still need the plan.
we were all, and they were all in shape. So now, you know, everybody has all these issues and cholesterol and health. And so we've modified it to our lifestyle. So it's something that you can, and actually, you know, now it's all coming back to the good fat. So people are increasing their fats or increasing things, but it is, you know, kind of, you have to see where your family's taste buds are at and kind of what you prefer and you know, and your kids. So I'm gonna bring a platter over just to show you guys how do we get ready for the Banjan. This is the eggplant, where first what we do is we would drizzle some of this yogurt on the bottom of the dish, the yogurt that we prepared maybe like half an hour ago. And we would drizzle it all over the bottom. Eggplant is traditionally made, you know, you can eat it with the palau. So palau without the raisins and the carrots and the nuts, it's palau. And we can have that without the topping, and that's called palau. What we're making today is Qabili Palau, which includes all of the toppings. So as a child, actually, I hated all of those toppings. And we have this amongst some of our kids as well, where we actually separate for them some of the rice and the meat before we dress it up with all the toppings. And it's a preference, I guess. And as we grew up, you know, we began to like those things. Debbie, do you have any stories? I have my husband here.
No, I'm just waiting for the food to come out and for the azan to go off.
Yeah, so methods were done different. So now we have the yogurt drizzled all over the bottom of this tray so that we can assemble the eggplant and then the other yogurt back on top, and then we do a little bit of mint on top of that.
I do want to say one
Go
thing.
ahead.
I would.
The cooking the lamb the day before, when it goes in the fridge, that's the best opportunity for the husbands to kind of get into the fridge and make that late night snack. So it's, you know, just a little tip for the husbands out there.
I was struck when you said that that the carrots in Afghanistan were sweeter. They're not sweet here, so we have to add sugar.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I've heard over and over again on different types of vegetables, different things where people will say, and this was sweeter in Afghanistan. This was the flavor was stronger in Afghanistan, this and this and this. And so I just thought that was really interesting.
I think it is. And even when you buy the whole carrot, so I thought, oh, I'm taking a shortcut, I'm buying the shredded carrots. Even the whole carrots, I find that they're just not as sweet as they used to be. So I've asked around, and most people add a little bit of sugar. It's interesting because even I think 20, 30 years ago, carrots were sweeter. I don't know. I feel like everything has been modified now.
I think our taste buds have become dull.
Maybe. So I have 8 minutes to go on the Kabuli, and it's 6:30 right now. So do you guys want to hang out to watch it served? Is that okay? If you guys are okay with it, I want to show them. Can you give me a frying pan? I want to show you the way that they typically make the rice brown. I'm gonna try it. I'm not very good at it, but this is how my mom and like 90% of Afghans who don't use the browning sauce. This is how they basically, and it actually adds a flavor. It's like it's a caramelized flavor that it adds to the palau. If you can get me a pan. Okay. Can you mix this out for me, please? So you basically heat like a tablespoon of oil. I stay away from this only because I just feel like it creates a little bit of smoke in the household. But I had a lot of Afghans tell me I need to show this to you guys because it's a very traditional way of browning the rice. So I will go ahead. You have to keep a very close eye on this because you don't want to burn your house down, basically. Then you add a little bit of oil. Like a tablespoon of oil. And once it heats up, then I'll show you what we're gonna do. But in Afghanistan, this was a way, and a lot of ladies do it here as well, where they just, I'll leave the sugar here. Once the oil heats up, it's just very warm now. They do that. Another thing that I think in Afghan households, it's very common is this this rice that I made for you guys, and I know that I have a lot of Pakistani friends who also their biryani is made this way, where it's called dam pukht, which means we don't strain the rice. So instead of boiling it and straining it and then putting the sauce on top, what they do is once the chicken is fully cooked, they pull the chicken out and they put the rice into that same pot, and then they add water enough to just cover the rice about maybe an inch above where the rice is, and then they slowly allow that to boil. And some people put that in the oven or they put it on top. I didn't demonstrate that because I wanted to demonstrate, the old-fashioned way of actually straining it, but that is also a way. And in different parts of Afghanistan, they have different methods where I know that I have a friend who's from Mazad, and they actually do layers they do rice, they do meat, carrots, raisins, and then again, they do the rice, the meat, carrots, and so they pile it. The reason I don't put the raisins in the oven is that it gets really mushy for me. But if you like it mushy, and then they mix it all together, they don't put it just on the top. So there's many ways, and I would encourage you guys for all ethnic foods. Right now we have the internet at our fingertips, and there's so many recipes up there. There's YouTube videos up there on different traditions, and it's such a nice way to introduce. Sometimes we're cooped up in Orange County, and we can't, like right now, we can't even go anywhere. But stepping outside of the box and trying to introduce a different culture, a different food, is sometimes, adds a little bit of variety in your households. Let me check on the eggplants real quick. So the eggplant's looking good. I'm cooking it on high, like a medium. It's at a 5. I typically like to cook the eggplant lower and slower, but because we don't have time, I'm gonna lower the other one too, so I could show you guys how to do this. I'm not really good at this, but I was told I need to demonstrate this because this is the typical way that they brown the palau. I'm just gonna do a little bit. Maybe it wasn't hot enough. So you just add that sugar into your 2 or 3 tablespoons of oil, and then it begins to caramelize. And you need to keep shaking it and moving it the way I am.
You spread it.
Because you don't know, it'll spread. It starts to caramelize because you don't want it to burn in one spot. And I think maybe my oil wasn't hot enough yet, so we'll give it a few seconds to get heated. See how it's doing. And go ahead. Somebody say something? No. In the Afghan mimoni, like having a party without Qabili is like unheard of. Like you can't do it. Like it's just like not heard of. Like that is like the main big dish. And so traditionally, like if we go to any Afghan's house during, an invite or an invitation, that's like the staple. There's multiple other dishes. And what I like about Afghanistan is because it borders with so many countries, I imagine that it has, so you see the sugar bubbling up now. So this entire thing will bubble up. And this is what they typically use to color the palau with.
There's another question, Mitra.
Yeah.
How long should we keep the rice in the oven for?
So total of 30 minutes is enough. So I did like 10 to 12 minutes on the high heat and 20 minutes on the lower heat. But you can leave it in there at a very low temperature for a good hour. Nothing will happen to it if you haven't overcooked it on the stove. So do you guys see this right here? This is how they would traditionally color the rice. If you leave it, it solidifies. I'm gonna move it. So my mom told me this is how she does it. She's like, when I was in that step where the chicken came out and I pulled the meat out, I would add this to the chicken broth. And at that moment, she said, you need to be really careful because it's hot oil and sugar. You need to make sure your face is kind of far because sometimes it makes this really loud noise. She said also sometimes you can leave this to solidify and then heat it up with some hot water later to make it easier. But right now, I just wanted to show you guys this method because this is a very traditional method of how we brown the rice. And another method is to brown onions. That's the original, the OG method of Qabili, is to actually brown the rice, so brown onions so much that that onion is used to make the color of the Qabili. Qabili Palau is not made of brown rice. So we are now at 30 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and try and serve the Qabili. We have all these different kinds of platters in our houses. These are ones I got at IKEA a long time ago. Let me see if I can find my spatula. Oops, sorry guys. Okay, that's letting us know that the Qabili is ready. And I will go ahead and get ready to serve it. Let me clear up some space here. So can you move all of this for me a little bit this way? Are you listening to me? Sorry, can you move all of that over a little bit, please? Alrighty. I'm gonna put my gloves on now, and we're gonna go ahead and see what happens. Can you give me a blank white plate as well? I wish you guys could smell it. It smells really good. Make sure if your counters can't have hot items on them that you put something on them. Let's turn all of this off. See how we're doing here. Make sure that when you're opening it, you hold your face back a little. Sometimes the steam, I have been burnt by steam. So it's really hot when you open it. And that's how it kind of looks. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take the meat out on a separate plate a little bit so I could put the wrong hand in the wrong glove. Okay, here we go. Can I have the plate? You wanna bring me tongs? I think it's gonna work better. So what I do is I take the meat out to get access to the rice. Yeah, this is better, okay. And like I said, you don't always have to put the meat, but because the meat was kind of al dente, look now it's like falling off the bones, it's fully cooked. I'm gonna move these to a plate so that we could put it underneath the rice when we are plating the Qabili. Some people cook the meat to get more brown, and that's like the method that I was talking to you guys about, where it's the searing of it. It's like they do it really well. A lot of I don't know if for those of you guys who've had my lamb, the lamb that comes out a little bit darker. It's that process that we utilize. And let me move this. And then another important thing is to toss the rice a little bit before you put it out on the platter, just to mix all of the spices. It looks really, really good. It smells really good too. I'm gonna see if I can do this for you guys. I didn't take all the meat out. I'm gonna do as much of it as I can here. And when you get like about 2 scoops of your rice, you spread it out, and then you put the meat back on. I feel like maybe this was a lot of meat, but we can save some for later. The idea is to have the meat under the rice. So let's see how much I can get to stay under. And then let me scoop out the rest of the palau from this side. Oops, that can happen sometimes. I don't know, in Afghanistan, maybe did you guys eat a lot of chicken? Was murgh palau common?
No, lamb.
Lamb always?
Yeah, lamb and beef. Chicken was more of a treat.
Wow, where chicken is common here, and I guess lamb is common here too. I mean, it's not.
By far, lamb was the most common.
I don't know if you guys have seen right now. because of Corona, a lot of the meat prices have gone up. I was reading articles, especially the beef. There's still a lot left in here, and I'm not gonna scoop all of it out just because I'm gonna keep it in there to keep it warm for later. But there's enough in this pot for definitely 2 families, both of this combined. And I typically just keep the aluminum trays in the garage, and we'll figure out who our lucky family is tonight that we're gonna share this delicious meal with. So move this over a little bit, and I'll go ahead and I don't know what happened to the top.
Right there, it's behind it,
Where is it?
right behind the dish.
Oh, okay. So this is still sizzling. This was steaming while I was taking all of this out. You can just spread it. It's hard to do this without using your hands, but you kind of evenly spread all of this out. Like that. I'll leave some of it in the present. It's all about presentation. And when I do this to deliver to some houses, what I do is I assemble the rice in the aluminum, and then I drizzle the nuts and the carrots and everything on top. I can't see if that's enough or not. And there's all different kinds. If you go online, some people are so artistic with this. They do all different shapes and creations, and they do it all different ways. So that's that. I'm gonna move this back over here so I can dish the eggplant for you guys. Are you guys hungry? Am I making you hungry? I don't know, it's like a little uneven. Or is that just how it looks on the camera? Okay. So this will be the eggplant. I kind of cooked this higher than normal, but it looks like it's done. Most of the sauce is dried up. It's got some sauce. And then we just use the flatter spatula to try to keep it all together as best as we can. Eggplant can be served on the side of Qabili, like a side dish, but honestly, like just with a piece of bread, it's like the most amazing thing on its own. So you could just have it with like Arabic bread or traditional Afghan bread. I'm not doing a good job. They're breaking. It doesn't really matter because once you get it on your plate, it's going to break up. But we try to keep them on, and people cut it in different ways too. Sometimes some families they don't do them circular; they do them elongated. Get all of this. And some people put like a whole chili pepper in here, which gives it like the flavor of the chili pepper, which is amazing as well. Okay. And then last but not least, we put a little bit more of this yogurt sauce. We drizzle this. Make sure that's off. You hear it. This yogurt sauce is really what makes it. So I would be very generous with it. And lastly, if you have fresh mint, which I'm out of, you could put a few of the fresh mint, or you could kind of drizzle it with the dry mint. And there you go. Thank you guys so much for giving me this opportunity this Ramadan. I know it's been a challenging Ramadan for a lot of our families. You know, we've been isolated from the community, from each other. Thank you guys for tuning in to learn these traditional Afghan dishes. I don't know if you got close-ups on them. If you guys have any questions or concerns, I know these videos will be up on YouTube, and maybe you guys can ask there or ask at the Majlis Facebook or Instagram, and then I'll have access to answering them. Our prayers are for you guys to always be safe and healthy, and enjoy warm meals together as a family, and be able to share that with your neighbors, with their friends, with family, and all of us are family. We are all communities that through our traditions and through our faith have become family. So from our families to yours, we wish you guys a blessed last few nights of Ramadan. Eid Mubarak to all of you. We miss you all very, very much. We hope that inshallah this coronavirus will be cured so that we can get together and I can cook for you guys live in my home and bring these blessings to all of you. Thank you guys at the Majlis for having these unique classes. I'm sure you guys have observed that our community has so many Zoom classes available, and I think really this one was a very unique one that they asked me to do, and then maybe inshallah throughout the year we can have different ethnic foods and different cultural foods shared so that we can stay connected through our traditions. So thank you so much, Sheikh Jamal and the Majlis, for hosting us. And inshallah, you guys have a blessed last few nights of Ramadan and keep us in your du'as. Thank you.